Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So let's talk about how the West and Western culture has failed. And let's talk about how it's more than fair to point that out. So the church historically, for the past, 1700 years or so, the church and the churches, they've been like the center of Western culture. Other things were responding to the church. The church itself was responding to the idea that God set apart the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order. You're going to see them right very shortly. First of all, in Egypt, which came well before Rome, you had African Falcon martial art kings who established the Egyptian pharaonic dynasties, the first dynasty, the Old Kingdom, the first dynasty, the first official pharaoh, as far as historians record it, who united the two lands, Upper and Lower Egypt. Now, if they weren't martial art kings, they styled themselves after martial art kings, right? The Narmer palette. There's the falcon there. They gave themselves falcon names, as far as anyone could tell. And they're in a martial art position, the smiting position, with the royal mace. And the enemies of divine order, of divine martial art order, are being trampled on. And some of them go underground, right? The criminal underworld. They go underground and they flee from masculinity. That's what the Narmer palette is about. It's about sparring. It's about single combat. It's about spiritual warfare. It's about all of that stuff at the same time. It's about the divine order. The Romans were well aware of this. Early on in Rome, they were worshiping some of the Egyptian deities, Horus, Harpocrates, and otherwise. And Isis worship was very popular early on in the Roman timeline. Before that, when Rome was just getting started, they were just very primitive, very simple people compared to the Egyptians. Egyptians had this massive army, this glorious empire, in certain ways at least, as far as anyone can tell. In its height, it had 1 million soldiers, 1 million soldiers. I don't think America today has 1 million soldiers. They had 1 million soldiers in a nation whose population was much less than America's. It was this very warrior-oriented society where science, martial arts, religion, dating culture, etc., nature, they were all merged into the same. They studied them at the same time, as the story goes. Here comes these betas in the church. Quite often very simple men, very weak men, very feeble men. They were separate from the brutes in the Roman army, who were these rapists who took slaves. These were very ruthless people. Don't get it twisted. Egypt, in most of its history, from what I gather, was also evil. But it was founded on certain principles that the early pharaohs were responding to, either morally or immorally. And over time, the different pharaohs that emerged, regardless of race, right? Some were black, some were perhaps Libyan, perhaps white skin. Eventually, you get the foreign period with the Greeks and the Romans, and so on and so forth. At some point, you had Persians, Assyrians, and Babylonians, and Hyksos. You had people from outside, foreigners, who they considered the enemies of the divine Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order, and you had people pretending to be part of that Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order who perhaps just kidnapped Pharaoh's daughter or something after they were killed, poisoned, what have you. So then the Romans, like the black people, like the Middle Eastern people, like the Near Asian people and whoever else, they were clearly responding to the idea that God set apart the martial art king. Hell, the tradition of the king wearing a sword, continued, right? You had the machete, you had the cutlass, you had the mace, you had the sword, you had the spear. These were all things that kings wore. From Southwest Africa all the way to Northern Europe, certainly in Asia, what have you. Certainly all the way in America. The spear, the hunter aspect of a chief, the warrior aspect of a chief. I mean, where didn't they do it this way? So the whole world was responding and pretending to be what the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order was. And of course they were black. There's an overwhelming amount of evidence to that. And I'm not a racial supremacist. I'm a moral supremacist. This is what's happened. So when I say there's no evidence that any Western king manned up and said, hey, it's not us, it's really the Royal African Falcon Martial Order, there isn't any evidence. Show me the evidence. I'd love to see it. They didn't say, hey, that they don't deserve that they're not they didn't. And then when they were talking about Jesus, they made it seem like he's white. They made it seem like he had their characteristics, which were pagan, which were theater arts, which were religious ecstasy, ritual madness, which they were imposters. Even the word in the English, even the word imposter in English is a play on words for quote unquote I'm, and the second word poster. They impose and superimpose, and they're imposters. They're poster boys, not the real. They're propaganda posters. They even changed my speech patterns to sound propaganda-ish because they're so disgraced that they can't help but add more disgrace to the disgrace. What is disgrace? When you diss the real grace. I am the grace. I am the top martial artist ever possible. I'm the one by God's grace who was set apart as the top martial artist ever possible, the King of Kings, the pinnacle of human existence, where divine existence comes into human existence. Open and shut. You'd have to be the most fanatic and stupid Christian or some stupid religious fanatic. Even an atheist is forced to admit my point. Because the key point for the atheist is that I'm the pinnacle. Maybe they don't believe in God. Maybe they swear up and down that they don't think that God exists. But they know that only a retard would argue that a mere scientist or politician or artist is greater than the top martial artist ever possible. Mind, body, soul, and spirit. And all those atheists are quick to argue that schools have a spirit, that there's a certain spirit to the town, an atmosphere. So even if you're shallow when you look at it as a very surface level, you still see that I'm the pinnacle of it. Of all time. You'd have to be one dumb fuck not to know that. So is it fair for me to say it? Yes, it's the truth. Should we pretend that Harry Potter is better than Michael Jordan at basketball in his prime because he has his pride? That's fucking stupid and it's disgraceful, and it disgraces him. How much more when it comes to being the top martial artist ever and the pinnacle of human achievement, of mind, body, soul, and spirit greatness? Are we to pretend that some tall, lanky white guy is the pinnacle? Some short Jew? Some brute in the military? No offense to them, but we have to put it in perspective. They learn a few tricks of the trade from craftsmen. The special forces are nowhere near comparable to me. And nor is it required for me to pretend that they are. Not by God, not by your Constitution, not by anyone with sense. Are these distinctions important? Yes. Are they more important when people are lying about them in a sense? Yes. So am I doing something wrong by making them? No. Are they doing something wrong by insisting that I don't make them? Yes. Pretty straightforward. So as they were responding to the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order and God's choice and nature's choice, if you don't believe in God, you at least know it's nature's choice. It's destiny. Natural and true versus artificial and fake and superficial and shallow and hollow. AI cannot compare. The future cannot produce something that compares because nothing good can be established through wickedness and screening out that which is great. Nothing. Challenge you to a debate on it any time. Even in my most poisoned moments, I could easily win a debate on that. It's open and shut. So they're responding to that. And they say, hey, we have our own church here. And they respond to each other. Their confessionalism with the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation. And the age of the global church movements and evangelicals and on and on. As one response after another, a layer of responses to the pinnacle, which is the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order, as they move away from it. Anything that isn't it is wrong and evil. And in a sense, the Protestants moved away from it further because instead of retracing the footsteps of the righteous, they moved away from them. Instead of looking at the Catholic Church and saying, where are they wrong and being right? They said, they're going to be wrong in their own way. Not a single Protestant obeys God through me. Many of them are aware of this because they've decided in their hearts to be wrong in their own way because they're in the Protestant spirit, just like the Catholic spirit, of being wrong in their own way instead of being right. It says in Matthew 5, be perfect like your heavenly Father is perfect. But you've chosen to be wicked, like the wicked people who are responding to the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order by being evil and lying. So when it comes to the ethos of a town, should it be being a sniveling, arrogant rebel with your nose in the air, acting like a bitch, thinking it makes you a man? Should be a gangbang asshole, a corporate asshole, a hippie that refuses to be a man, a scatterbrained fool, a rocker, a mocker, a fool, metalhead, idiot, thug with no higher cause, dumbass, a Shaggy Doo punk, a Simpson worm, a rich bitch? What should it be? What should be the ethos of major cities? The atmosphere, the spirit? Should it not be moral precision? And not the spirits that you people have chosen to be worms are in? If you respond to true masculine greatness by being a jealous, sniveling, Barbie doll game playing bitch, say, but I'm Kane in this, and when they see it this way, and you are a fucking disgrace. A fucking disgrace. Shame on you. Refuse. You refuse to be a man. Like refuse, waste products on the ground, like dung on the ground. You think if you put your nose in the air that makes it better? It makes it worse. You think if you exploit people and hoard money, it makes it worse. Righteousness is greater than wealth. How much more when that wealth is blood money? While you trample on the poor. And there's 100,000 children in the streets, 6,000 totally on their own. It's not because they didn't ride the goat well enough. It's because your culture is shit. And it's designed to create homelessness and not to solve it, which it can easily do in a very affordable manner. What culture is insisting on people rallying for a sound and cost-effective plan that's universally fair and just and right? It's only mine. Everyone else is in the boundaries of cheating me out of my right to lead, which is the most despicable thing. Better to kill trillions and trillions upon trillions of worms who aren't righteous enough to honor my rightful place than to cheat me out of my rightful place. The wicked deserve to die. The righteous deserve to be exalted. Who could disagree? You who follow pedophiles and their allies and accept their boundaries, who could disagree? Are you not the type of trash that follow wicked people the first chance you get? Don't you deserve to die immediately and in the most painful way? Are you so dumb and blind and lame that you don't see that? Do you think that if you damaged my brain and made me literally blind, and if you made it so I'm crippled, you say, well, who's dumb and blind and lame now? You think that's going to help the situation? Are you so dull? You of little faith and no fucking wisdom, are you so dull? Why are you doing it to your own offspring? Why do you keep having kids? When you're so fucking pathetic, why don't you just stop having kids? If you refuse to be a man, why have a child? A pussy cannot raise a child to be a man. If that child is male and it's not going to be raised to be a man, it's a piece of shit. Kill him, get him the fuck out of there immediately. He's a disgrace on the planet that God made. Every child that's destined to be a punk and not a man is better off dead immediately. What is your counter argument?